Alright, what's up guys? Welcome to the channel. So I'm going to try something a little different for this one. I know some people tend to watch the silent videos, the silent tutorials or processes, whatever you want to call them, but you know what? I've never just kind of hung out. I actually had the idea that I might want to go live and just play the video, and that way I can sort of correspond with people and have conversations with people because it's actually really difficult to sculpt and to get through a sculpt when I'm also like replying to people and talking to people. So I might try that on another one. This one I couldn't record the audio because it's a little harder because I have to watch, the monitor for the baby. I'm constantly going in and out of that room to deal with things. So it's a bit harder to go live, but it's also harder to record because sometimes I always have to jump off of I turn the video off and then turn the audio off. But then also I had we have this fan in our kitchen that's really loud, so it's a great ambient noise. So if I need to walk around and things like that, and I'm worried I'm gonna wake the baby, then I turn the fan on. So that's pretty loud. And we also have this like little bottle washer thing, so I'm always so when that's on, it's also loud. So sometimes there's just a lot of noise, and if I don't feel like fighting against it and worrying about it, I'll just sculpt. And this is one of those sculpts that I really just did for fun. You know, as much as I'm kind of conditioned to record every single thing that I do, it's gotten to a point that if I'm recording a tutorial, if I'm recording a character, if I'm building a character, then I'm just so used to speaking, to like just talking and saying what's on my mind. That's kind of the point of my whole channel. But it is also nice to just sculpt for fun without speaking and without worrying about, how something is going to look, or if I'm, messing up too much, or just noting things in my head to be like, okay, I have to go back to this point and edit this out, which happens a lot. There's certain things that sometimes I leave my mistakes in that I do when I'm sculpting. So for this one, I'm probably going to leave all my mistakes in, but there are sometimes or some mistakes, or I get, I have to like run out of the room or something like that. So I'll edit those out. But yeah, this is just a little cute character. I really love practicing with different shapes, and using the different types of symmetry and things like that. I don't even know what I'm doing here. I think I'm smoothing. But I really like that kind of the video I did before this, the little pink guy with the pineapple. I really like that sort of style character, and it really makes me sad that I'm not in a house yet. I don't have the ability to 3D print. I was doing it here in the apartment for a while, but it's just once we had a baby on the way, and then the baby was going to be here, and I was like, I have to get rid of all this chemicals, and I'm not going to be running the printer, and I just really didn't have any more room, so I kind of had to give it up until the time I can start printing again. But little characters like this, it makes it so much more fun to 3D sculpt when I'm doing all these things, and I'm painting them in Nomad, and I'm like, okay, I can paint it the exact same way once I 3D print it. It's the first step is just the first step is biting on the printer, figuring out the slicer, and working all that stuff out. But once you have that part worked out, I mean, granted, there's always fails. Like it's 3D printing is not easy. Resin printing, I mean. I've never done the other type, but I've always just liked the detail of the resin printing. So, but it's really amazing once you kind of figure out how to, you're like, okay, you printed your sculpt, you run it through, you've cleaned it out, it's hollow, so you can clean out the inside. It's not gonna explode or leak resin. If you ever notice in my videos in the background, well, not in the videos. Like if you follow me on Instagram, some of my pictures that I take, like I'll have a photograph of, oh, like for example, the face. So if you look at my Instagram, I recently posted two faces. So I sculpted two faces, and in the background you'll see a sculpt of or you see a 3D print of, what's his name? Baymax from, oh, what is that? What is that? Something 6, I think. I can't remember the Disney cartoon. I'm completely blanking on it. But anyway, Baymax is this little like plump character, like robot character that it's kind of like a blow up robot or something like that. But this 3D print was my first 3D print that I was really excited about that I made. I made it hollow, but I don't think I made it hollow enough. And also, I think I had parts joined together. And when they're joined, what happens is each part is still sort of, each part is still individual when you join. So when I printed it, resin would get stuck in certain parts of it because it wasn't like I remeshed or like, yeah, it wasn't like I remeshed everything together or booleaned everything together so they become one piece. So there's these different parts that still contained resin. And right now on my desk, there's resin that's like on the back of my desk and like going down the wall from this print. Because luckily it hasn't like blown up or cracked, but the resin is leaking. So if you're going to be 3D printing, it is good to either make them hollow and make sure that they're cleaned out completely inside, or just print them solid. But of course, that's going to be a lot of resin. They're going to be a lot heavier, so on and so forth. But to make an already long story short, I really do miss 3D printing. But anyway, so yeah, back to this little guy. I actually sculpted him a while back. Really cute, but I don't know where. I'm pretty sure I have the Nomad file for this character somewhere, but I couldn't find it. I migrated. Excuse me. Of course, I'm gonna have to clear my throat. So I migrated from my older iPad, like an M1 to an M2. So, I exported all my Nomad files, and now I have them. But sometimes I don't know what happens to some files. They just tend to disappear. So instead of like getting upset that I couldn't find this file, I said, okay, let me just make a tutorial and I'll remake this character. Sometimes that's just the easiest way to do it. There's another bonus to that also, is when I made that character, I was way less efficient. So let's go by years. Each year, I become way more efficient at Nomad. And that just happens in time. You know what I mean? You just kind of figure out how to do things. You figure out the best shape to get the look what you want and things like that. So, this new character is going to be more efficient, and I'll be able to make it faster than I made the other one. So a lot of times if you have to repeat something, it's usually better than it was the first time. But I really like this character, so I made him again. I just sculpted him from the original one, and I've deemed him Pinky Pineapple. I have some really nice Blender renders of this little guy too, but from the older version. But it'll be nice if I find that version and I open it in Nomad just to see what I was working with. But yeah. Yeah, there's something really simple about, or there's something nice about these like little simple characters. They seem sort of simple, but they're actually very complex. Like even simple things are very complex. But even less the sculpt, but more just the artistry of designing like a little character is extremely difficult. I mean, obviously I've been drawing forever, and sometimes I will create things in Procreate, but one of the things that I really love about Nomad is I don't feel like I really need to have a reference all the time. You can just play. And I think that that's one of the, I think that's Nomad Sculpt's strength, is really just play. Because when you have Blender and the other 3D applications that are a little bit more, are a little bit less creative based, they're a little bit more technical based, whereas Nomad is for sculpting. It's a bit more relaxing and fun. And it kind of reminds me of how, when, kids, when they're young, like you give them Play-Doh, which is essentially just, and they start making things and sculpting things. And it's exactly the same thing. So now that, everyone's pretty prolific with like touchscreens and things like that, but then also artists are good with drawing and painting and using some sort of tool, which is now the stylus. So for me, Nomad Sculpt, the beautiful thing about Nomad Sculpt is it allows you to literally just play and make things on the go, and it still have that fun sort of. There's a thing with drawing, when you really get into your flow and you don't know what's gonna happen, but you can just kind of go with it. That's how I feel about Nomad. It's just so relaxing. Like I can just jump in and just create a character from scratch. Don't know where it's going. I can work on it for 20 minutes, decide I don't like it, and just undo that time and then just keep going and start again. And actually, not, is it this character? Oh no, this is, I think for a moment when I was speaking back then, I had forgotten because this obviously the head and stuff looks just like Pinky Pineapple, the last video. But yeah, this character, I might have misspoke and said that this character was based off the previous Pinky Pineapple, but this one is just playing. Like this one, I have no reference for. I was just like sculpting. They do tend to. The hardest thing that I would say is trying to get your characters to look significantly different, because there's certain things that you're always going to do. There's certain things that you kind of like and that you sort of fall back into. So I noticed that a lot. So it really takes me a lot to make if I was going to make a little cute character like this, to make it very different from what this looks like, which is actually a good exercise to do. So I might do that. I might do it for the next 1 hour challenge. I might just sculpt something, try to get it done in 1 hour, but try to make it very different from the characters that I usually make. And of course that's a double-sided thing, because I also love making these characters, and this is what makes me happy. That you always want to lean into the things that you really love, the things that you really like to do. So, for me, it's these cute little characters, and it's also okay to change over time, because your drawing style, I think it should change. I think it's way more normal for your drawing style and the things that you like, and the mood of your art, the mood of your art, the style of your art, the general, is it kind of dark? Is it kind of light? Is it cute? Because mine have changed so much from high school. High school, I was very influenced by, there was an artist called Derek Hess. He used to do a lot of publication artwork, like the covers of maybe magazines and stuff like that, and brochures, and street art and stuff like that. So there was Derek Hess. I think I discovered him, I think maybe when I was in college. In high school, it was Mark Echo. So Echo clothing was really big back then. But the guy who created Echo, the artist, actually went to my high school. I think it might have been about 10 years before I went there. But he went to my high school, and he had the same art teacher as me. So I actually got to meet him. But I really loved his artwork on clothes. And I remember I'd always buy the clothes because I loved the artwork so much. And I still have a lot of the shirts from a lot of the original Echo shirts. And I went to a school thing. It was My school had they had something like an art, some sort of artistic thing in the library, and he was invited, so he came and spoke. So I was able to take a picture with my art teacher who had us both, and then me and him. So I wore like a nice little like blazer with with the first Echo shirt that I ever bought. I believe the title of that shirt was Poisonous Potion, I think it was. Pretty sure it was Poisonous Potion. So if you Google that, if you Google Echo, and it's not, I think it's ECHO. Oh no, 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 maybe that's actually how you spell Echo. I think it's ECKO. So if you Google Echo, ECKO, and Poisonous Potion, it's going to be like this, kind of like this montage of these people and the kind of like weird things like in smoke. That was the the print on the shirt, and I really liked that kind of art. I thought it was really cool and kind of like cutting edge. So a lot of my style was very kind of very flowy, very loose, very weird. A lot of stylistic humans and faces that kind of melted into each other. I really enjoyed that, and I really liked that. And you can kind of see that influence when I got to college, because I was doing these, what I call the orange series. So there was all these orange drawings, and you can actually find some. Where do I have them? It might be. It's probably too difficult to look back on Instagram. That's one thing that I don't like. I feel like if you want to see the first thing that someone's posted, if they posted a lot of stuff, it's really difficult to get to, because sometimes you'll scroll on Instagram and it'll just reset to the top, I feel like. So anyway, so I would do these orange series, which is these weird kind of outlandish stylistic faces and animals and kind of like scenery, like all sort of melted into one and flowing into each other. And I would use these black swirls. I would sort of integrate these black swirls on this orange paper. I remember going to, it wasn't Blick. What was it before Blick? Pearl Paint. It was Pearl Paint on Canal Street. I'm not sure if there was another one. Was it? I think I would get them from Canal Street. So I went to college. I went to School of Visual Arts in New York City from '99 to 2003, and we would go down to Pearl Paint, and I would get this bright orange paper, and I loved it. And I would do like a sketch, and I would just integrate these black swirls, and then I would just use these shapes and just draw and draw and draw and make these really cool images. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I have some on my Instagram way back in the day. And I think I might have some videos actually here on YouTube where I show you, where I show and walk through some of my older artwork. But I think it's kind of interesting how the art that you love, the things that you love, the things that you see, the visual aspects of life, art, just the things you love when you're younger, they really have an influence on your style and what you want to create, the kind of art that you want to produce. But it changes, because I'm not sure when my change was. I think it was when I got to a certain age. I started mixing it up. I'd be weird stuff, and then it'd be weird, cute stuff, and cute, weird stuff, and kind of dark stuff, but sometimes it'd be cute. And then all of a sudden, I just started drawing this cute stuff. And this was well before I had, a child. I mean, I had my kid is 3 months old. So we're talking about like 10 years ago. There was just like a shift, and I wanted to make these like cute things and like softer things. I'm not really sure what that is. I still really enjoy weird, dark art. One of my big influences in college, I really liked Mark Ryden. So he was a painter, or he is a painter, and so he made these really weird kind of paintings. Have you ever seen the movie Big Eyes or heard of like Big Eyes? It's kind of like Tim Burton-esque, but it's all like painted, and he had this obsession with like meat, so like meat was painted in. It was sort of cute but dark, sort of ominous, but like kind of light and playful in a way. The imagery was sort of like a 1930s, 40s, 50s vibe almost. Maybe a little bit later. I'm not sure about the years, but it kind of had this sort of. It reminds me now of like if you're on TikTok, you might have seen like all of these like AI videos of like liminal spaces. But anyway, there's like these. It's like the same sort of vibe. There's like some vibes out there that are kind of like otherworldly, but similar enough to where you kind of understand it. They almost feel like, have you ever been to like a pop-up art show? And of course, being that I went to school in New York City and pretty much lived, I mean, I lived in Astoria and then now I live in Brooklyn. But pretty much going up here, I've been to a lot of pop-up art shows, and that's kind of the only other place where you can sort of be immersed in a world that like feels very other and very, very different. And over the years, there's been some really, really cool ones. One of my favorite shows was called Sensation. And I remember, I'm pretty sure I went to see Sensation with one of my classes at the School of Visual Arts. Like, I think we went as like a group. And it was actually very controversial. It was kind of like a darker show. Darker in the sense of like the artwork was very weird and kind of out there and very strange, a bit macabre. I don't think I've ever used that word in real life. But it's like very like obscure art, but very interesting and cool. That kind of thing always, like the line between like scientific things, biological things, and art has always been kind of cool. Very, very, very cool stuff. It reminds me right now of the artist on, if you've ever seen on Instagram, there's an artist named Gummy Fetus. He makes all these kind of weird, it's kind of in that vein, very kind of weird stuff. Also, Cause, I mean, I guess his artwork isn't really that dark, but I believe the artist actually went to School of Visual Arts as well. I'm not sure when, but if I'm not mistaken, I believe that artist also went to School of Visual Arts. But yeah, so I mean, I had a really fun time in college, and things never really stopped inspiring me. So I'm not sure where the cute thing came from, or what I started seeing that was really started making an impact. But I'd never really fight it. I kind of always just go with it. And as my style changes, then my artwork changes. I actually went to school for 3D. I went to school for 3D animation. The early 2000s was kind of when all those 3D things were like blowing up, like Toy Story and all these studio like DreamWorks and Blue Sky, all these like studios. I'm not sure, actually. It's hard to know when some of the studios came out, um, but I think Blue Sky was like one of the precursor to like Pixar and stuff like that. But all that stuff got really big, and like Ice Age and all those things, and I really loved. Like, I thought the 3D stuff was really cool. To me, it felt like the next level. Like, it felt like what I was doing, but it felt like the next frontier. So I was like, I got to get into 3D. So even though I didn't have any experience with 3D, I think that would have helped immensely. But back then, I mean, you really had to have the computer, the applications. You really couldn't. It was very difficult to do on just like your home computer in like 1999. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of high school kids just didn't have this 3D stuff. Whereas now it's like people have really fast computers, and you have Blender and you have all this other stuff. But it really wasn't like an option back then. If it was, I mean, who knows where I would have been now. But but yeah, so I was a 3D animation major, but I switched what was it, after my first year? I think I might have switched after my first year. I actually can't remember now. That's so wild. I can't remember if it was my first or my second year, but I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I didn't hate school because the first year, it might have been after my second year actually, because the first year you learn a lot of like other things, like you learn a lot of, what do they call them? I can't remember what the name for the base classes that you kind of have to you have to take, like art history and art and literature and things like that. And you can take electives, but you need to have a certain amount of just, whatever you call those classes that don't have anything to do exactly with your major. So there's a lot of those. But what was cool, there was a lot of like drawing classes and life drawing classes, which I think was the most influential in improving my artwork. By far was life drawing. And it wasn't really that fun like in the moment, because it's very difficult, especially if you feel like you're a good artist and then you're like drawing like a human, like the human model, posing model, or you're drawing something else. It's one of those things where it's hard to hide. It's hard to hide from it. It's hard to hide from what you're seeing and what you're producing. And we did a lot of that, and we did a lot of like, the model would pose for 10 seconds and then switch and then switch and then switch. And, so we'd have like 10 pages of just the model of like 10-second, I can't remember the name, gesture drawings of the models and things like that. That wasn't all we did, but I will say that life drawing, I'm so glad that, I went to art school and that I did things like that, because that improved my drawing so much. I'm not sure what it is or what it changed, but I remember being blown away after I had done a bunch of like life drawing, because it also just teaches you to really use your muscle of seeing something and then recreating it and figuring out ways to recreate it, and using the shapes, using the negative space, all of that stuff. So, and all that really plays a role in the artist I am today. Everything that I learned in school, I'm pretty sure that like I use on a normal basis. So it was a great environment, and I don't regret. Like I loved it. I had such a great time in school. It was really really fun. I didn't use my art degree until like, let me check the camera. I didn't use my art degree until like 2021, I think. I didn't use my art degree until I discovered, I mean, I was still drawing and things like that, but in terms of like making somewhat of a living, that wasn't until like 2021. That wasn't until, yeah, because I was doing tutorials. It might have been a little bit before. It might have been around 2019 or 2020 when I started doing tutorials on YouTube, but it was Procreate tutorials. This was before I knew Nomad Sculpt existed. I'm not exactly sure when it came out, but so I was all 2D. I was drawing and I was doing 2D. I was doing Procreate tutorials, and I was doing that for YouTube. And someone commented somewhere. No, I have no idea. I can't remember who the woman was, but someone commented and they said, you should check out Skillshare, because you can make classes and your tutorials are really good. I think you'd do well. So I actually did check out Skillshare, and that's been a life-changing thing for me. So first I was doing 2D art, and then a couple years later, I bought my iPad for Procreate. So then a few years later, I realized, or I found Nomad Sculpt, And I was like, oh, like it's cool that you can do 3D on an iPad. I had no, I never thought that I would ever be able to do 3D. Once I stopped doing it in school, I just figured like, you know, 3D is not for me. Like I'm never going to be able to learn these programs. I'm never going to be able to afford these programs. And, so after school, I spent the next 15 years of my life, like in the, modeling and acting world, like pursuing that, which after like 6 or 7 years of it, I really didn't want to do it. But, what are you going to do? Like, you have to like make a living, and I was also doing like marketing promotions and like, promo modeling and stuff like that. That was like early on in my career. I would say that was like 2000, 2003 to like 2006, 2007. I was doing lots of like marketing promotions and like these gig jobs. So I was doing that. I was doing some sort of modeling and stuff too. I kind of fell in that because a lot of my friends at SVA were film majors and photographers and things like that. So, you kind of get connected in that world, and then you have photos, and you've acted in some of your friends' films and things like that. So that kind of gives you a jump start on trying to pursue that. So, but yeah, so that's pretty much how I made a living. But once Nomad came along and I could start doing 3D, I mean, it really was a game changer for me. Now, like I said, 2D was like my main thing, digital artwork with Procreate. And if you look back on my Instagram, it was all animal drawings. Like for the longest time, I would say for a couple years, it was just all animal drawings. Like that's what I did. Like that's how I gained the majority of my followers, was from drawing animals and sketching animals and things like that, which I loved and I love. And it was a lot of fun. I would just find pictures on Instagram and I would just use the picture as reference and I would recreate, I would just draw it as like a Disney style, Pixar style character. And again, that you can see that influence in my artwork. You can see that influence in my 3D sculpts, and that actually that might be one of the catalysts of why I kind of got into more cute things. Because when you're drawing animals, at least for me, it got to a point when I was drawing where at first I really wanted to draw things like as lifelike as possible. So it was all about details. And it was all about like kind of realism. And I wanted to draw it and make things look really real. And that was like the goal. And once I did start drawing and once I started doing digital art and I could use color, I could never paint. I was always a terrible painter. But with digital art, I could paint the same way that I could draw. So it was so much easier. So I could use paint. So I can make something match a realistic, like I did a frog drawing and I matched the reference like to the T. Like I look at them both side by side and they look almost identical. But what I realized was I didn't really get any satisfaction out of that, which is kind of an interesting place to be. I'm glad that, I think there's a lot of skill and a lot of technical skill that it takes to match something and to see something and then recreate it, because everything is always going to be in layers. And that's the most difficult part of maybe art in general, but like recreating something is you really have to recreate those layers. You have to do a sketch, you have to do a loose sketch, maybe clean the sketch up, maybe do like a loose outline, make sure that all of the proportions are correct, unless you're, using like a stencil or something. Make sure all the proportions are correct, and then, maybe do some shading or maybe do some coloring, however you do it. But it's like layers and layers and layers, and you get it to look exactly like the picture. But I mean, really, it's just like the picture is there. So like now you have something that's as good as the picture, something that's as good as what was already there. So even though it's cool, even though it's like, oh, like, you know what? I would get comments on my Instagram, and, some of the comments were, oh, wow, like, I thought that was a picture. I thought that was a picture. And I think I got that so much that I was like, I never want to do a piece of artwork and someone thinks that it's a picture. Because, we see pictures every day, and like, and I love pictures. I'm a photographer as well. But, if you're making a frog, like say you take a picture of a frog and then you paint it and it looks exactly like the picture, well, then there's a little glory in like posting it, and people are like, oh, wow, I thought that was a picture. And if you can post a picture and people might say nice pic, or they might just like think, oh, that's a cool picture, and like not even like it. You know what I mean? So, I wasn't getting the feeling that I wanted from it. Which is a weird thing to say, you know what I mean? But being an artist for me, it's not only about creating the art, but it's creating that feeling that you get when you see a piece of artwork, or you see a photograph, or you see something visual and it does something to you. Like it moves you somehow. Like you're just like, want to get closer to it, want to look at it, or want to be there in it. You know what I mean? That's the kind of feeling. That's the next level. You know what I mean? When you're sort of chasing after that feeling. And I don't think that a lot of people break it down and really think of it that way. Like think of creating art as a way to evoke whatever emotion that you may have felt looking at, artwork when you were little and things like that. Because I distinctly remember, I mean, I've been drawing forever. Um, but I distinctly remember seeing like sketches and seeing artwork and always being like, wow, like it's amazing that someone can produce this. It's amazing that someone can come up with this. And there's just something about the feel of this character and the shapes and the line weights and or the colors and whatever it was. There's just something that just like I would buy sketchbooks of artists that like have done like sketches, like Disney art sketchbook, things like that. Do I hear the little one? Oh no, I don't. But seeing people's sketches was just like such a magical thing for me when I was younger. And seeing people's drawings. I remember seeing the first Ninja Turtles, and there's a part where they show the sketches. I guess April was like sketching the turtles, and they're just like these amazing sketches. And like there's something about that, regardless if it's a movie, like someone really drew it. Of course, I used to also buy Ninja Turtle magazines and the old kind of books that they had, those like soft cover books and things like that. And yeah, it's the feeling that you get when you see a certain type of art or a certain character that just like evokes some sort of emotion. And for me, it's like that's what I go for when I'm making things. I feel like they have to have. I'm not happy with it unless it has that extra unexplainable thing that makes it special. And I think that's what keeps me going and probably keeps most artists going. It's like you're always wanting to create. Like for me, if I can't create, if I can't draw, if I can't sculpt, if I go on vacation, if I go somewhere for a few days, it kind of hurts a little bit because it almost feels like I have all these ideas. I don't know what they are, but they're in there and they're just like bursting to like come out. It's like I don't know what I want to draw, but I just need to create, and I need to create this feeling, and I guess it's sort of like a dopamine hit or something when you create something that you enjoy and you like, because I am doing it for me. I am doing it to make myself happy and to be impressed with myself. This sounds so narcissistic, and I don't mean it to be that way. But I feel like most artists, they're creating things because they want to they want to have that visual, that really cool visual thing that they can look at and that others can look at, that they can share. So yeah, so I mean that's what really like keeps me going, is like the idea of not creating just is so painful. And there was a long time in my life where I wasn't really drawing or creating. And I remember going back to like drawing and stuff like that. And it's always been such a part of my life, but you get to a certain age and you have to survive. You have to like concentrate on making money, and and I didn't see any future in art at all. So like I wasn't gonna, how are you gonna spend that much money? I mean that much time with it, it just kind of dwindled. But I'm really glad that I got back into it, and I'm glad that I discovered Nomad when I did. I think that was during COVID. But I discovered it, and I got good enough to where I was like, I can do this on Skillshare. My old Skillshare classes are all Procreate. And then Nomad came on the scene, and I was like, this is great. I can like record myself. Like I can have fun with this. Like I understand how to use shapes and use negative space and like all that stuff. So like I understood it from my history of drawing, from my experience with drawing and creating. And now I have this Apple Pencil. I have this stylus that I can use like I would a pencil. And I have this clay like I would have used when I was a kid. You know what I mean? It's like, but now that I understood shapes, I was like, I can make whatever I want to make because I just have to learn how to manipulate these shapes. And then of course there's all the technical stuff too, which comes in time. But that was really life changing for me, learning Nomad, and then feeling confident enough to make classes and to share it with other people. And it was never really in my vision to teach. That was something that was never really I never really thought that I would become any sort of educator. It's even weird for me to say, like saying it like that about myself is a bit strange, but I can't deny I can't really deny it now that the majority of what I do for a living comes from creating tutorials for Skillshare. I make YouTube videos, I do Udemy and things like that, but Skillshare has been the most hands-on with me. Like they've been the most supportive. And so when they're the ones that I really feel like I want to put a lot of work in and make classes for there, because I can finally use my skills, my drawing skills, my skills as a teacher, which kind of just came out of nowhere. And really I was just encouraged by people that were watching my tutorials during the shutdown. They were like, oh, your tutorials are great. Like the way you teach is great. It's like, I don't even know how I teach. You know what I mean? I don't know. I hate hearing my own voice. I feel like everyone does, but like I hate hearing my own voice, and I don't know how I teach. Like I just teach it the way that if I was wanting to learn something, that's how I would someone to teach me. Like I would want someone to teach me like kind of, not like I'm dumb, but like in a way that just like kind of makes sense and feels comfortable and feels fun. I need those things to learn. So I think maybe that's what I'm translating. Maybe that's the translation that comes through when I teach. But that was another thing. That was another feeling that I did not ever think about or have, was the idea that I was introducing this software to a lot of people, to a lot of artists, like touching people's lives. Even though it's just Nomad and maybe people are just doing it for fun, or maybe people want to, do something else with it. Like, that's kind of beyond the point. Like the point is, for me, is like I was like touching all of these people like all over the world, which is very cool and very fun. I mean, it starts to feel like you have a lot of responsibility too. But I think the fact that it came from an organic place for me made it a lot easier, because I was really just being organic. I'm really just explaining things just the way that I speak. And that's one thing that's carried over into Skillshare as well. Or I mean, I guess I should say all my classes. But since it's YouTube, it's like I'm not trying to be anything other than what I am. It's like if I think something's dumb, I'll just say like, "Oh, this is really silly." Or if I have some sort of feeling and I'm like, I need to insert a GIF here so people understand like what is going on this half of the screen because I can't explain it. I'm one of those people. Like sometimes a GIF is just way more perfect than anything I could say. But, or sorry, GIF. But yeah, I love the freedom of being able to create classes the way that I want to and create the art that I want to. I've kind of had to, of course, once it becomes a business, you sort of have to make sure that it's something that people also want to create. But it's less of a concern because if it doesn't work, then I'll just make a new class. And also, there's some people that are going to like it and some people that aren't. And that's the reality of art. There's always going to be some people that love it, some people that don't care, and some people that hate it. And of course, you want to, I guess that's when you get like your people, is they kind of like your style and what you do and things like that. But it also coincides with the fact that for 15 years I was doing TV and commercials and things like that. And I spent a lot of time like being an extra on TV shows and film sets. And then I was like a stand-in on movies and TV shows. And I started doing the stand-in stuff more because you're treated with a little more respect than you are when you're just background. It's kind of fun when you're young and you're just like new and you're in New York and you're on a film set and this and that. But it gets old really, really quickly. And it gets like difficult really, really fast, especially when you go through a couple winters where you're working, exteriors overnight and you have to wear like your wardrobe that they provide because they're like, oh, it's like this is a scene, it's like a fall scene, so no winter coats, you just have like a little jacket and we'll try to get you back inside so you guys can warm up, but we're going to be shooting from 6 p.m. till 6 a.m. and it's going to be cold, but we're going to get through it and you guys are great and we appreciate you and you guys make the movie, make the TV show. That's great and it's fun and you're meeting all these people and you're getting free food. But let me tell you, after a while it sucks. It is terrible. Some people love it, some people do it all the time, but I can't. Oh my God, it was starting to break me. And two things. I did some really cool commercials. I did some really cool I had like a few little parts on TV shows. I had a little speaking role on Orange is the New Black. I did some really cool independent films, things like that. So I don't feel like I wasn't a success with that. I had a bunch of commercials. So I don't feel like I didn't have success in that, but I didn't really love it. I didn't really care that much about it. It was just a way to make money. I spent a lot of time doing stand-in, doing background work, and you're on set for these shows. You're seeing how the camera people work. You're seeing the shots. You're seeing how the actors work. You're seeing the lights. You're seeing the locations that they're using. So you actually learn a ton about the filmmaking process, what goes into making a film, what goes into making a shot, how much work goes into it. These are things that you're not really going to see and understand unless you've been in the game for a long time. Even if you're if you're the talent, you see it a little bit, but you have to pay attention to like what you're supposed to be saying. You know what I mean? And you're just like in and out. But when you're like when you're a stand-in, you're actually assisting the camera people. So you're really seeing everything. So that part of it coincides with the fact that I love making classes and doing my art, but I also fell in love with just like filmmaking and photography and, speaking on camera and being able to set the lights up and like knowing what a decent shot looks like All of that stuff I picked up from those years of being on set. So I forgot what the other thing was. I remember saying that there was two things. That was one of them, because even though I didn't really like doing that, and I was like, I don't want to be an actor. Number one, I hate waking up early, and I don't want to be forced to kiss whoever they write you in to kiss. Like, I mean, that's just like in a nutshell, but it's not a glamorous life, believe me. Being an actor is a grind, and it is not glamorous. If you're a normal person, if your parents are famous and famous actors, then you'll probably get a lot further a lot sooner. But for normal people, even to just be a working actor is a grind. Uh-oh, do I hear something? Oh, yeah. Come on, go back to sleep. Go back to sleep. Go back to sleep, or else I'm going to have to pause everything. She's flailing around. She did so well last night. She slept. Unfortunately, she was in her car seat, and we don't ever let her sleep in her car seat, but we were in New Jersey and we drove back, and she was asleep in her car seat, and we were like, okay, well, we'll just let her sleep and she'll wake up in 30 minutes, 40 minutes or an hour. And she slept so long in the car seat. It was unbelievable. She's doing all right today. So we'll see. I'm sure she'll wake up soon to eat in the middle of the night, but hopefully I can get through this. I'm only at 51 minutes though, so I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, so yeah, I think it's important to try and utilize any skills that you kind of learn along the way in life, and kind of find some way where you can take those skills and just capitalize on them, which is, what I try to do. And only last year did I quit doing stand-in stuff, because, I did it for so long that I was pretty good at it. So, crews and camera people, they start to get to know you, and they're like, oh, okay, let's bring this guy back for the next project, then the next project. And before you know it, 10 years goes by. And it's really hard to break out of that, because you kind of get used to how much money you're going to make and get used to the job and the people. But I really didn't like any of it. I mean, I have some really good friends that I made along the way, and they're great. Like, they kept me going, but I was like a nobody. Like, you're just like a nobody on set, and like you really feel like a nobody, unfortunately. I mean, at least I did. But that's also because I knew that that was not my calling. I knew that, and I've always known that, like, I needed to pursue like becoming like a great artist, like whatever that is. Like, I always needed to pursue art, and I wanted to create, and I wanted to be the best. So I always felt like if I wasn't doing that, if I wasn't striving to be better, to be better, to be better, that I was kind of like not really happy. So how could I be happy doing this other job, doing this other thing that's not really creative at all, when really I just wanted to be home and I wanted to be creating art? Well, I mean, not really, not home per se, but I really wanted to be being creative. That's what it's really all about. And one of the good things about Nomad is I could bring my iPad to set. So if I had a 14-hour day and I only like worked, you don't work like the whole time. I mean, it depends on what's going on, but I may work like 3 hours of that day, and the rest 4 hours of it might be travel. 2 hours of it might be eating and getting from place to place, but whatever. You do have a lot of downtime when you're on sets. You have a ton of downtime. So for me, I had my iPad. I was like, let me learn this program. Let me create stuff. Let me draw. Let me 3D sculpt. So it was good that I had a lot of downtime, because I was using that to learn. And then everything shut down. And then I was like, okay, like, let me just let me just start recording, drawing and doing all that stuff. And and COVID was really, like, I would never wish COVID again. Because it's just, it was like it was a devastating thing, and it's just sad all around, unfortunately. But as far as like the human the human race, I mean, when do people ever just get a break in life? Like a break might not be the right word. I feel like that's too positive of a word. Like you don't ever have true free time as an adult, you know? Like that's unfortunately like that caused everyone to have an undetermined amount of free time as an adult. And it's difficult. I mean, if you've been working, if you work and have been working and you're used to working to make a living, it's so weird to just like have all of the free time you could ever need to do whatever you want to do with your life. And I'm sure a lot of people probably struggled with that. I'm curious to say, I'm curious if anyone's listening to this, if they, how they felt when, most people, everyone, well, I mean, you get wrapped up in your purpose, in your job as an adult. Usually it just becomes your job. You get wrapped up in that. So I'm curious, anyone listening, if anyone's out there, what, how that change was, how that changed you, if you were able to continue to do your job, and how you used the free time. Because I did, obviously, the TV shows and movies, like they came back fairly soon. I can't remember the timeline now, but maybe after a year or so, they brought us back and we had to go get tested 3 times a week and tested before we went on set. And if we were not even working, we'd have to go to a location and get tested. And I remember in the beginning, they used to have the really long Q-tips, the ones that were like 6 inches, and they would stick it all the way in your nasal cavity. Oh my, that was the worst. That was the worst. But, but yeah, so I used that time to start recording, and I just never stopped recording since. I had always been into like kind of making short films and recording things, and I've always been creative like that. Even back to with like the VHS days, like the camcorder days. My buddies and stuff. But yeah, that's kind of when I just started recording my process, and every year from then on, there's like little ways that I would make it better. Like I think I started out using an iPhone 6 or something. It was my now wife, who then girlfriend. She, she had an old iPhone, and that's what I used to like start recording. I just like mounted it overhead, and that's what I used to start recording. And then I still use an iPhone now. I use an iPhone 13 Pro to record, and but like the mic that I'm using right now is I think I might have went through 3 or 4 mics. As you kind of realize that you start doing it, and then I was using the phone audio, and then I was like, I need a mic, and you get like a cheap one, and then you get like a little bit more expensive one, and then eventually you get a little bit more expensive one. But it's really all in time, you know what I mean? I got a better iPhone eventually, and a better, a computer where it's easier to edit. Then I got like a Mac, so I was like, okay, I can use the iPhone, then I can use AirDrop to drop the files, and this is like saving so much time. It's so much easier and so much more convenient. That's kind of how I became an Apple person, because as much as, and I still like Android phones. My family, my wife they all have Android, which I think is great. But for what I was doing, like if you're using an iPhone to record, so you have the video taken care of, the audio is pretty good actually on the 13 Pro. The audio is pretty good, but then you just have one click, and you can just send your files to your computer, and back and forth when you need. And also you're using Nomad Sculpt on an iPad, so you can send those files to the computer. Like everything is just so much faster and easier. And, I'm not saying people should go out there and get Apple stuff, but it, you know, if you do, I can't imagine an easier way to record a screen and like have everything like sort of like match up. I guess you can probably like hook it up with like wires and things like that, but I mean it's tricky. It'd be tricky with an Android. So so far this has been really working for me. It's one thing that I'm a bit nervous. We're in the midst of house hunting. Houses are extremely expensive. And we're trying to move to New Jersey. There's a lot of people trying to move to the places that we're trying to move to. But right now, my next frontier is to hopefully get a house. And so I can have like a proper studio. Because right now, my wife and I, we're very new age. We have separate bedrooms. So my bedroom is above my workspace right now. I am an old man who uses a loft bed, but my room isn't too big, and I wanted to utilize as much space as possible, because when I'm filming, like if you've seen my Skillshare classes, my talking head, where I'm talking to camera, like I have like a huge light. I have huge lights. I have all these things set up, and I really have no room, but I tend to make it look. I think I do a good job with making it look like I have a nice little studio, but my bed is right above it. So I can't wait to actually have a real true bed and have space and have a garage. It's like I can't wait. I can't wait. Like this apartment, I feel so trapped in it. But until then, I'll keep grinding away. Keep grinding away. It's funny, sometimes I just completely forget like why I've gone off on a tangent. But that's okay. That's actually the whole point of doing this video, which is the kind of thing that I've never done before. And I'm not even sure actually how long I still have to go. But I don't know, it's kind of nice to just it's sort of like a podcast, but not really. You know what I mean? But I mean it's I also love doing this kind of thing on YouTube because what if I get a lot of feedback, like what if I get like comments and people are responding to some of the things I'm saying, or something I'm saying resonates with someone. You know what I mean? Because you don't really know. As an artist, as a creator today, you don't really know what's gonna hit or like what works. You can follow like rules and tips and tricks and things like that, but I really feel like you just have to follow what works for you, and you have to try stuff, and you have to be inside the box and think outside the box. And I was originally going to post this. I found some public domain, like a public domain radio kind of station thing. I'm always looking at public domain things. I think it's just like a really interesting thing that things go in the public domain after a certain point in time, and then you can just use it for free. But I also love that kind of stuff, like really old, like 1920s music and things like that. So, but I found some audio that I was going to play over this, and it was long enough, but it was either that or I just play it just silent. But it always just felt, and I was actually ready to continue this sculpt because I have it painted at the end of this, but I want to paint it more. So for that video, I'm going to do a speaking video, and I might actually just tack it on to the end of this. I might do that and have it as one long video. We'll see. I might do that, and I might also add it as a standalone video just to show like how to paint and how to use layers and things like that. But yeah, like just posting it silent. I mean, you always have the option of turning the volume down, but it just I want to be able to post, like if I'm just like, you know what, I just want to sculpt and I'm not going to talk. I want to be able to post those things too, but they just don't feel finished unless there's some sort of audio. And I don't think I've ever just sat and just talked for this long without having like any idea or knowing what I'm talking about. But I like the idea that I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna try to like sit and talk for these 2 hours. I'm probably gonna have to pause it because of the baby, but it's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting. Might even toy around with just staying quiet until I think of something more interesting to say. That's kind of how I am in real life. I'm actually quite quiet in real life, I would say. Unless like I really know people, in which case I'm not quiet at all. And I'm quite silly. How many times I'm going to use the word quite. But I think if you were on set with me, or if you asked anyone on set that I wasn't like expressly friends with, they'd probably say like, Dave's like a nice guy. He's really quiet. He just keeps to himself. Does a really good job at what he's supposed to do. But other than that, will just like stay invisible and like do his thing. And he's always sitting there by himself, not bothering anyone, on his iPad, either drawing or 3D sculpting. I feel like that's how 99.9% of people would explain what Dave is on set and how I roll on set. The worst thing about it is once I got to know if I was on like a show like all season, like for example, I stood in for Pooch on Ray Donovan, and I worked that show for maybe like 3 or 4 seasons. And you get to know people. You see people every day, 14 hours a day. Maybe not every day, but like when you work, if it's a busy week, you might work 5 days, and one day is 8 hours, the next day is 12 hours, one day is 3 hours, and the next day is 16 hours. So you're working with these people all day long, and you kind of get to know them and you kind of get to see them. So the hardest thing for me was eventually, I was like, man, I wish I didn't know all these people because I don't really want to talk to anybody. I just want to sit in the corner and disappear and hope that they just forget I'm here until I like have to work, and then I can just draw. I'm moving around in my seat. But that's kind of like that's kind of how I am. It's like sometimes I'm not a very social person. I can be social. I can go to, wherever, and I'm fine in a social setting. I've gone to, my wife works in law, and I've gone to some events with her and things like that. And like, it's fine. It's fun. I have a good time. I like meeting people and talking to people. But I'm very much, I'm very much a loner. I'm very much quiet. I enjoy quiet. They're like sometimes you meet someone and they're kind of like on your, not level, because that's not the right word. They're kind of on the same page. You know what I mean? If you ever like go somewhere, or go, or like you work a job or something, and sometimes you just meet someone and you just kind of like, oh, this person I can just be next to and be with, and we're just kind of like together, even if we're not talking all the time and have our space. You kind of have those little like you kind of certain things are kind of funny that you both notice. Sometimes I do connect with people like that, but for the most part, it's just I don't really try to impress anyone. It's kind of funny going to events and before that, my wife worked in an art gallery, so we went to a ton of like art shows and openings and things like that. And some of them were a little more, um, what's the word? Let's see, what is the word? Not proper. You know what I mean? It was kind of like a little bit like upper crust. a little bit more, a little bit less casual. Sometimes there's casual events and then there's, I can't remember the word, you know what I mean? But I always like just kind of like being myself, and like I might talk to an artist, or, I might go to some law thing and talk to, like a partner or something like that. And it's like, yeah, they're just people. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm just a person, like they're just a person, like I'm just going to be nice and talk to you like you're my next door neighbor that I just ran into. You know what I mean? Because if you think about it, like, why would you not talk to people that way? It's like if you know, like, oh, this person's like the big boss or whatever. It's like they're just a person. I don't think, and coming from the fact that, like I was saying, I worked on set for years and years and years. It's like I've been on set with like some of the biggest people in the industry. You know what I mean? Like some of the biggest names in the industry. And when you're in it for so long, it's like, oh, these are really just like people. It's like some of them like don't have it together just like people do. Some of them are really just like nice and talkative like some people are. Some of them are just really quiet and shy, like when they're not working, they're just like really like shy and normal. And it'll be lunchtime and they'll just get in line in lunch, and a PA, which is like, the assistants, the people that go around and kind of wrangle everything and help everybody and stuff like that. They'll be like, "Oh, you want me to bring you some food, or you want to order something?" And some of them just like, "No, like I'm fine. I'll just like get some food and sit at a random table with people." And yeah, I mean it's very humanizing to be on set, with a lot of these actors, because if you work with someone for 14 hours, you're both tired, frustrated, and everyone's like everyone just sort of is just like surviving. Like it doesn't matter how like famous you are. After 16 hours being on set, it's like nobody even cares. They're just like, I just want to go home. Like I just want to figure out what subway am I gonna have to take to go home. You know, it's kind of how it is. They're like it's just people. So I think that's kind of helped me. It kind of helped me in that industry because the people that would hire me, like if it was for, let's see, who have I stood? I'm trying to think of people I've stood in for that. I mean, he's not really like a super A-list actor, but like for example, like Ernie Hudson, I stood in for once. Um, but I stood in on Power. I stood in for Ghost for Omari. I stood in on Power for like 2 or 3 years, and you know, and he was like he's like a very serious guy. He was always nice to me, but I never really like tried to talk to him. I never like was weird around him or tried to show that I was like, oh, like I'm a good worker, or I'm really friendly and like whatever, because it's like no one really wants to, like, you're going to stand in for someone, like if like no one really wants to talk to you. They just want you to do your job and do it well and then just like disappear. So that's what I did well. So that's why I worked so long in that industry. And, sometimes if someone had someone who was a little like higher up, they're like, oh, we need to stand in for this person. They'd be like, oh, like, let's just use Dave. Like you know, he doesn't care. Like he's been in the industry. He's not going to try to like talk to someone or like make things awkward. There's so many people that make things awkward on set. It's actually insane. Um, yeah, it's like it's a very interesting world, and it's really odd. And that's one place that I really felt like an outcast, was being like on set. Really felt like an outcast. And for some reason, I never really wanted a boss. And when you're on set, like you don't really have a boss. Like there are people that like you kind of have to be careful around, but you don't really have a boss, so to speak. You have people that you listen to, people that need you to do certain things, so like you listen to them. But like sometimes directors and stuff, it's like sometimes they're just mean, like nasty people, and other times they're just like super nice and down to earth. I was working on one of the directors, and she was also a writer on Power actually. Wait, no, was she a writer or was she just a director? I can't remember. But anyway, like one of the stand-ins, like randomly, we're shooting. I don't even remember where we were. Somewhere it was like cold and rainy, and like one of the stand-ins' shoes was untied, and the director just like went down and like tied her shoe for her, like it was just like you know, like if it was like she had a kid and they're just like, oh, like their shoe's untied, just I'll just go and tie it. I don't know why that moment like stood out to me, but it's one of those things for some reason. It's like I'll never forget that moment of just like breaking all of the hierarchies of like a TV set, because like there's the hierarchy is so crazy on movie sets and TV sets. It's just like it's insane. But again, like I'm saying, like these are just people, and in that moment, she was just like a person who wanted to help this other person who I can't remember for some reason. Either she didn't realize her shoe was untied, or I can't remember if she was holding something. She might have been holding something, but she just went down and tied her shoe. And I just, for some reason, in my head, seeing that, and it made me just like, it was so wholesome that it just like made me feel like some type of way. Even just like from a distance. You know what I mean? There's just certain things in life that like you see, and you maybe not even meant to see. Maybe you would have never even seen it. And things like that happen, and you might not ever just happen to be looking in that direction. But it's kind of nice when you do, and you're like, wow, that's just so like out of ordinary. You know what I mean? But anyway, but yeah, she was really sweet. There are a lot of really sweet people in the industry as well, but it's a hard industry. It's a very hard industry. Um, but I guess they're all kind of hard, like even Skillshare. It's like I should be making a class right now. You know what I mean? But part of part of my success on Skillshare is directly attributed, attributed, directly attributed to my success on YouTube. So I've always felt like, YouTube is a way that I can siphon people to take my Skillshare classes. Now, siphon feels kind of like, I don't know, it kind of feels like a dirty term. But I have to be honest, like that's kind of like what it is. It's like I love making free stuff and making free tutorials, but YouTube doesn't really pay that much. So the fact that they don't really pay, like, I mean, it's not really them. I mean, it's just my videos do okay, but I don't really make a lot of money on YouTube. So Skillshare, I was like, okay, like I can do like a really polished class, do all the editing, and just make it like a course, like a real course, edit out anything that I don't need and just spend a lot of time on that. That's the main difference between this and Skillshare is I edit those classes so that it's strictly just learning. As if you're going to go to school, you learn all the right things. Like I might include like a mistake if it's like a big learning thing for my students to see, but really it's like learning the thing. So it's really just me doing the actual thing with the right steps. Whereas YouTube, I love making the YouTube stuff because I can make mistakes. I can go 10 minutes and then change my mind and go back. And that's also the reality of how I create. I can do videos like this where I'm recording and then I just don't speak, or I don't do like the audio commentary of me sculpting, and I can do this over it, which is like fun, and it's You know, it's just a different way of creating. But it's because some people have taken my Skillshare classes that I can do YouTube. And that's the reality about it. So Skillshare, the fact that I do well on Skillshare means that I have this extra time that I don't always feel like I have to be pushing out Skillshare stuff. I can spend time just like having fun and making free content for YouTube. So like, you know, so even though like siphon feels like a dirty word, it's just like, I kind of think of it as there are certain people that just want to learn Nomad, and it's like, no, like I just want to learn this skill, or like learn how to do like this character in the most direct, like efficient way possible, in more of a course type setting. And that's kind of what I provide. But I would say that I put like if there's like a YouTube video, like I'll record it and then I'll just upload it, and you know, I might edit, like I make sure the sound sounds good. I might edit if I, you know, if I leave the room for like 10 minutes and then like I mark that time, I'll cut that out. But other than that, I just upload it. So it's like really quick and easy. It's just the hardest part is just making whatever I'm making. But with Skillshare, it's like there's like an extra 12 hours that probably goes into any video art that I make. There's like, you know, I have to write my script for the talking head. I have to record the talking head. I have to do the editing. And then all the classes, I have to do the editing and make sure that they're smooth and clean and crisp and all of that stuff. So it's just kind of it's just a different style of teaching. So yeah, so they really go hand in hand, but I think most of the people come from YouTube, to be honest with you. Instagram, I don't think many people come from. I honestly feel like Instagram is kind of dying. I feel like TikTok was like the Instagram killer. Now, Instagram kind of, the only reason they do have like this legacy sort of grounding, you know what I mean? Like they've just been around for so long. And it's almost like if you don't have an Instagram, it's almost like just like a standard. You know what I mean? It's like it's not a standard to have a TikTok. I feel like most businesses probably don't have TikTok, but they'll usually have an Instagram profile. It's kind of like that's kind of like the first line of defense. Although, you know, TikTok is, I mean, I do have some videos on TikTok, but I would love to spend more time on TikTok because I think TikTok is now a place where I just don't think the visuals are really what's driving Instagram anymore. Like it used to be photos, and it kind of is, but the imagery isn't really what's driving Instagram. Whereas TikTok, even though it's videos, it's like you're just seeing it and it's easy to get like locked into TikTok. Now, of course, Instagram is kind of doing that with their social media. I mean, with their reels. But it kind of changed what Instagram is. Like Instagram is like trying to be TikTok. You know what I mean? And I think that the reason it's trying to be TikTok is because TikTok is kind of like what the up and coming thing is. So now everything is sort of trying to become TikTok. So, but yeah, one of my goals is to get over 100K on Instagram. And I just feel like I need to work hard to get there. And I would say that Instagram does feel like a chore, like it does feel like a job in a way that TikTok doesn't. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't even know what I mean. TikTok feels like a little bit more loose, a little bit more like Wild Wild West. I don't feel as invested, whereas in Instagram, I feel very invested. and like what I post. And that's a good thing and it's a bad thing. It's a good thing because it's sort of curated, but it's also a bad thing is I don't feel like I could just record something on the fly that I think is fun and post it. Like I just won't post it to Instagram. I feel like I have to post certain things to Instagram. And then that becomes a little bit of a downside. I don't really like that. Like for my social media, like I want to enjoy what I'm making and I want to enjoy showing people. And I find that it becomes a bit hard. And especially on Instagram, for some reason I feel more pressure. And if I feel pressure, I'm feeling it for a reason. I don't think it's like just me, because I don't feel the same pressure on TikTok. But Instagram, for some reason, I don't know, it doesn't feel as organically fun. But, it is a place that you can get noticed and a lot of people can see you. And I think for artists, that is a must nowadays. It really is like if you want to be seen, like social media is really the way to do it. And most everything that I post is reels now. And it's funny, everything on Instagram used to be 2D, used to be pictures. Early, it was pictures real early on, but it used to be artwork, 2D artwork. But now I, f- I feel like it's kind of pointless to post pictures. I don't think it is, but I just think time has moved on. That's really what it feels like. But anyway, how did I get on such a social media tangent? I don't even know. I have no idea. I was gonna record this with my mics. I use a Shure SMB, or is it SDMB? I can't remember. There's like two of them, but it's a Shure SMB mic that I have mounted, and really, really good investment. And this is an XLR microphone, so you might have heard that. That's like the microphone with the big, thick, juicy like plug with the three prongs. And I did a lot of research, and I found that they have this thing called, oh God, what is it? What is it called? So Motive Mix is the application. I can't remember the name of this tool, but if you look up Motive Mix, let me see what it's called. I'm messing around here. Oh, it's called a Shure MVX2U. So what that is it's a plug. So the XLR can go into that plug, and then the plug can go into USB-C. So what used to be, so I would have had to get like, there's like these little boxes that you have to plug the XLR into, then you plug it into something else, and all this whole process. But now I can just do it through USB-C, and this mic is amazing. So I was really happy when I found that, because I'm so in the weeds with like all this stuff. Like once you start doing live videos and you have video cards and microphones and all this stuff, it just becomes really overwhelming. So I really try to simplify anything that I can. So this little Shure MVX2U was really, really useful, because I can just plug it in and then plug it right into my computer. And audio is so important. People were so mean to me in the beginning when I started doing live streams. They were just so mean about the audio. And it's like, I knew that the audio wasn't good, but like, what can you do when you don't have anything else, And people are savages. And yeah, so, it's at a certain point in time, when you start doing it for a long time and doing something seriously, it just is really worth it to just invest in things that you can have for a long time. I mean, you have to build up to it, but it's really worth it once you get there. Unfortunately, what I need now is a nice space to be able to utilize a lot of these things. Like I can't wait to see what I'll use as a studio. So that's really exciting to me. You know, I mean, I wish I would have had it 10 years ago, but you do what you have to do in life to make it until you have something better. That's really what it's all about. I mean, it seems like, probably from the outside looking in, making videos and having this mic and all that stuff, but it's like, man, I sleep in a twin bed above my studio, which is annoying. So, 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 so annoying. But, again, I make the best of what I had. And I have a very limited space. So that's the only thing that really works. The good thing is I don't really feel like I need a big bed. And that might be odd, but I really don't feel like I need a big bed. But I'll get one. When it comes a time where I can just walk to my bed and lay down, that is a luxury that I cannot wait to have. To be able to drive my car anytime I want and have my own parking space, including a garage, that is a luxury that I just can't wait to have. Like I think about it and I'm like, I hardly can believe that could be in my future. I just can't believe it. To go to the bathroom. I wonder if I should pause or... Oh no, did I just see your eyes open? Or was I bugging? I could have sworn my baby just opened her eyes, but she still seems like she's asleep, so I guess it's okay. I'm really curious, like I wish, I was thinking about doing this as a live video and just like playing it and interacting, because I really do like interacting with people on live. It's very difficult. I don't have much time to respond to messages and comments and things like that nowadays. I just have like too much stuff going on. But I do miss that. Like I like in the beginning when I had a little more time to respond to everyone. I always had this thing where I wanted to make sure that I could get back to everyone. But at a certain point in time, that became a bit overwhelming, because it's like not only here on Instagram, but it's also on and not only here on YouTube, but it's on Instagram and TikTok and things like that. So it became pretty difficult. But again, that's a good problem to have, and I definitely don't complain about that. I'm very happy with how I've been doing on YouTube and progressing and things like that. I'm very appreciative that people appreciate the videos I make. I feel like I started a thought and then I got sidetracked. One thing very interesting that happened to me tonight was on Instagram, they have like an AI. So you have like an AI yourself. So you can turn it on and like it'll kind of respond as though you respond. And like I've seen some of them throughout the times and it's like they're pretty good. Like they would respond kind of how I talk. I guess they get information from like your comments and things like that. And it's kind of like an AI assistant or something. I don't know. But today I was like looking and like someone was having a conversation with AI Dave Reed, and the AI was like saying things that were just like not true about me. That actually sounds weird. Like it was just like stating things that weren't factual. So there was like someone who was asking me about if I was born again. Like they were asking me about religion and things like that. And the AI assistant was responding in a way that was like stating that I was, and that I like, it was kind of jarring to see. It was very jarring. And like and it was just like having a conversation as though I was like a religious person. And, I'm not a religious person at all. So, if you are a religious person, it's kind of like having your AI assistant express to someone else that you are of their faith, who's a different faith than you. That's kind of like what it feels like. So that was very odd, and I don't really know how to. And even though I went in and I responded because I didn't want this person to think that this was me responding, so I went in and responded, and I said, I just saw this conversation. I wanted to let you know that like I'm actually not religious, and I'm not sure why this AI was saying that and things like that. And the person actually after that was kind of like, oh well, like can I tell you the good news? I kind of that that's kind of how it goes, I suppose. But still, regardless, it's like I don't know. That was the first time that I was kind of like this isn't good. You know what I mean? Like I don't know why I don't know where it's getting this information from, but even after I responded as myself, the AI Dave Reed also responded and was like, "Oh, like please, like tell me more, and why do you this and why do you that?" And I was like, "Wow, this is really strange." It was really really strange to see. Um, but yeah, so I do have to figure out how to change some of those settings, and I don't really, I don't really think that my art and Instagram is really a place where I discuss like religion at all. So I found that to be a bit odd. But but other than that, as far as life goes, the last 2 days have been nice. But before that, my wife and I were in absolute crisis. Having a baby is not for the faint of heart. And I will say this: some people definitely have easy babies. Our baby is not easy. She is not easy. I think some people also have a lot of outside help, and we unfortunately like don't really have that where we are. Another perk of me moving to New Jersey would be moving closer to my family. So we can, because right now we're just a little too far, unfortunately. But yeah, so we were in crisis. It's been like the hardest thing that I've ever done, to be honest with you. Like I'm a very even keeled person, but the amount of rage I felt like over the last month, like normally in normal life, I probably only feel rage maybe once every 3 years, once every 2 years. Maybe let's do that. Maybe let's say let's say twice a year. That's probably a little bit more realistic. But once you're having a kid, they can be so frustrating that I feel like it's normal for me to be in a rage every like 5 days a week, 5 out of 7 days a week, at least once a day. Um, but the thing about it is you kind of learn, you figure it out, you work through it, and then like it's on to the next thing, you know what I mean? So but she's happy and healthy, and that's all that's really important. We are just working through all of our mental stuff and physical stuff, not sleeping, driving back and forth to look at houses and things like that. So it's been tough. It's been really tough. It's been really tough to keep up with like social media and YouTube and Skillshare and TikTok and Instagram and friends and family and life stuff. It's really difficult to keep up with a lot of that stuff. Not a lot of people probably don't really talk about that on YouTube or just in general, but I mean, it's a lot, man. You get older, and it's just like all these responsibilities just kind of pile up on you, and you have to kind of figure out and make it work. And that's kind of when you realize where your priorities are. Eventually your priorities kind of take over. Like right now, my priority is my kid, my wife and my kid. And after that, it's like my family, but family is different though, because it's not like they're doing their own thing. You know what I mean? They're doing their own thing. So it kind of so they're right up there, of course, but they have their houses and they have their they're fine. Thankfully, they're okay. But then it's like, gotta find a house, got a house hunt, gotta find a house, and not only find a house, your wife has to love the house. It has to be the right house for her. I found a house that I love. I think it's the smartest decision for us to move in. I think it's the closest for her commute. It has an attached garage. It has a big backyard. It's beautiful inside. It has an extra room, for family. It's on a quiet street. But happy wife, happy life. So, I had to, in the beginning, I had to mourn that house. And then it kind of came around again when we put in an offer for a different house that we liked. And we put in an offer $105,000 over the asking price. And so the asking price is like if you were to look at houses on Zillow and you'll see a price. And if you can make an offer, and you can make an offer of the price that you see, but if you really want to have a chance, you're probably going to have to make a higher offer. So we made an offer $105,000 more than asking, and we were only one of 21 people, and we were like the middle of the pack. So kind of just goes to show you that it's not easy to try and find a house. And then you find a house you like, and it's like, you see a price on Zillow, and it's like, are you going to put $200,000 more onto this price because you really like the house? It's just like, it's impossible, It kind of feels very, not demeaning. What's the word? Not dejected. It just kind of takes the wind out of your sails, when you finally find a house, and then it's like you can't buy it because there's so many other people looking, and there's so many other people with so much more money than you that are willing to do that, But I guess it's part of the process. I guess you kind of learn that. But yeah, it's been a struggle. Like this process, and like being a dad has been a real struggle. But not to say it's not without its joys. I mean, like I said, she's doing well, and all of the little milestones and things, and as she like kind of gets her own little independence, and she's finally got both arms free. She used to be swaddled, and she's way more responsive and things like that. So they're not to say that it's not a beautiful, magical thing, but it is a life shift. It just changes so much. I mean, it literally changes everything. There was a good amount of time. In the beginning, it was like, it's not bad. When they're really little, they sleep a lot. So we could like have a little bit of our life back. But now it's like if she's not sleeping, or like if we can't get her under control, and it's like, man, like we just want to eat or shower. It's like, it's been a while since we were just able to just sit and eat at the same time. It's like you kind of miss your partner because you're just like surviving. And it's like sometimes I'm like, I don't know when the last time I took a shower. Like did I eat one meal today or two meals today? But that it is what it is. You know what I mean? I'm not complaining. I'm just expressing kind of what it's like. It's definitely difficult. It's definitely difficult. I do all the laundry. So we used to go, sometimes we go together, all of us, like I mean my wife and the baby, but after a while sometimes the baby gets a little, starts crying and stuff, so my wife will have to walk around or leave. But I go out and I do all the laundry. I try to do everything that I can to make all of our lives easier. And it's, it gets very, very difficult, like day after day doing that, But what it is, what it is. I think for me, one of my big I was going to say release, but that sounds weird. Like one of my big ways to decompress is sculpting. And I think that's one of the reasons I like doing this and even making classes is it never felt hard to me to sculpt or draw and explain my thinking, like explain my thought process. Like that's always been somewhat fun for me. And I'll be honest, I talk to myself a lot when I'm alone. I talk to myself all the time. I actually don't understand how people don't talk to themselves. Um, and if it's not like talking to myself, like it's more just like speaking out loud. I think that's what it is. Like to me, speaking out loud is the same thing as talking to yourself. Like right now, I'm talking to myself, but really, I'm just speaking out loud, and you are hearing it and taking in what I'm saying. But technically, I think I'm just talking to myself. Uh-oh. We got some movement. We got some wiggling and wriggling. It's 1:30. So I don't know if she's going to wake up or not. Oh no. I mean, I hope she doesn't. See, like right now, I'm just like, I don't feel like dealing with you right now. And it used to be, she used to get up, I'd be able to feed her, and then she'd be tired and I can put her right back to sleep. But now sometimes I feed her and then she'll like, she'll have some gas issues and need to burp and she'll get kind of upset. And then we'll burp and then she'll just be wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. And then I have to entertain her for however long, which is, it sounds like a sweet thing. But after a while, you're just like, please, kid, can't you please just sleep? Especially if I'm making classes or something and I'm like trying to record and do all this stuff. And then like I have to run in the other room and grab her and feed her and get her all together. And then she doesn't want to go back to sleep. And then sometimes she just wants to cry. So I have to like take her to my car or something like that because I don't want to wake my wife up. I stay up until 5 a.m. And the idea is like, I usually just stay up so I can like keep an eye on her. And so like when she wants to eat through the night and I see her stirring and stuff, I can get up, go into my wife's room and grab her, do all that stuff. So that's kind of the idea. And then at 5 a.m., like I get to sleep. And if she cries after that, then my wife deals with it. That's kind of how we do it. And I'm more of a night owl anyway. So, as I say, it's not that bad. Every day waking up or every day like having to go to sleep at 5 a.m., it kind of does take a toll. It really does. And if it's a really stressful night, and I'm unable and I don't like brush my teeth and get ready for bed before that, then it's like, okay, I finally get her down. It's 5 a.m. Now I have to brush and wash my face and all that stuff and or shower. And then it's like I have to get in bed and then I have to wind down and the sun's coming up. So it's been a lot of that. So, it gets really, really taxing and it gets really hard to be creative and things like that. So I try to squeeze it in when I can. She's really squirmy now. So I feel like I might have to pause for the first time. But I feel like I'm getting like so close. Am I painting now? I'm only glancing up at my screen like every now and again to see like what I'm actually doing in the video. But I think I am getting to the painting part, which means I'm close. And I was really, before I started this, I was like, I don't know if I want to talk for 2 hours. Like, first of all, I don't know why anyone would want to listen, and I don't know what I would be saying. But I'm getting really close to the end, but I think I'm going to have to pause because she's really like freaking out. And I have to go get her. I have to go pick her up, carry her in. She's going to be wriggly and trying to make noise. And then I have to get the bottle from the fridge, put it in the warmer, turn that on, placate her until it's ready, feed her, hopefully burp her, and then hopefully she'll go back to sleep. So, however long that takes. Or she can just be a little doll and just go back to sleep and make my life so much easier. And I can just chill. Uh-oh, she's making noise. All right, let me pause this. The funny thing is she, I thought she was going to wake up, but she didn't. She's still now. It's funny, you know what this kind of feels like? It kind of feels like I'm in high school again, and I'm talking to like someone on the phone. When you're in, I don't know the different age ranges of people watching this, but back in my day, we used to talk on the phone when the phone had cords, and when the big phone was cordless, but it was like your house phone. But sometimes you'd be talking on the phone to someone you might have a crush on or whoever, and then you just talk, you're in bed and you just talk like through the night, and then eventually you just like fall asleep, or one of you just falls asleep. That's kind of what this reminds me of. It's kind of just like a stream of consciousness, which is kind of cool. I don't really talk on the phone much these days. I would say I talk to my family on the phone. I don't call them as much as I should, but they know I'm pretty busy. But they're the only people I really talk to on the phone these days. And but it was nice to see them last night. And they love seeing the baby. So it's always, it's kind of a long drive, but I really don't mind. I can't wait till I can see them more. But I think we're getting to the end of this, so I think in the next video I'm going to, or maybe even after this video, I'm going to tack on me painting this little guy. So I kind of add the color now, but I also want to paint him and, maybe give him some different color paints and stuff like that with layers. So I think that'll be the next thing. So it'll be more of a traditional tutorial type, whereas this was kind of just a little hangout session. But let me know what you thought about this. Let me know if anything was interesting, or if anyone's out there, let me know, because I don't know, this was kind of a new thing and it was fun to try it out. So here's the turntable. I love the little tadpole. He's so fun on top. And here's the screen record that I did on my iPad, which always looks a bit better. So that's it. Keep drawing, keep sculpting. I'll see you all in the next video. And here's going to be my outro where I repeat most of that. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Be sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to go more in depth, then definitely check out my Skillshare classes where I am a top teacher. I have about 50 classes, both Procreate and Nomad Sculpt. I also have a few classes on Udemy. So if you want to learn more, or you just like my style, you like the way I teach, you want to support me, those are some other places that you can do it. Thanks again. Keep drawing, keep sculpting. I'll see you all in the next video.